I'll record it to the computer.
Okay, Lisa, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, and welcome to this morning's hybrid land use public hearing, both in person at 120-55 Queens Boulevard, Kew Gardens, New York, and live streamed at the Borough President's YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/QueensBP. My name is Lisa Atkins. I will be chairing today's hearing on behalf of Queensborough President Donovan Richards and Planning Director Vicky Garvey. For those of you who wish to virtually testify and haven't already pre-registered for speaking time, you may do so by visiting www.queensbp.nyc.gov. For those who wish to testify in person, please notify staff before you take a seat. Please note your opportunity to speak will follow those who are pre-registered. Written testimony is welcome. For those who are unable to testify remotely, all written testimony must be received today by 5 p.m. and may be submitted by email to vigarvey@queensbp.nyc.gov or by conventional mail sent to the office of the Queensborough President at 120-55 Queens Boulevard, room 226, Kew Gardens, New York, 11424. Vanessa, please.
The public hearing shall be conducted in the following manner. The applicant will give a description of the requested zoning actions, the proposed project, and respond to any questions from the chair. The floor will then be opened for public speakers. Please listen for your name to be called. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to ask questions and/or deliver testimony. When you are called, please identify yourself for the record and if you are formally speaking as a representative or member of a group, the calendar number or application you are speaking about, and whether you are for or against the item. Then you may begin your testimony. Please note that a signal will ring when your time is up. At the discretion of the chair, if there are a large number of speakers on any particular item, it may be put on second call. Speakers for and against that item may also be called to testify on an alternating basis. Please note that if you are testifying virtually, you must keep your camera on during your testimony and display your name accurately on Zoom. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, Vanessa. And I'd also like to say that if there is anyone who is on live stream and wishes to enter any information to our staff, please enter it into the chat. Vanessa, please call the calendar.
Calendar items number 1 and 2 are related. ULERP number 260186ZMQ and ULERP number N260187ZRQ. The applicant is 108th Street LLC, affected Community Board 6. The presenter can begin.
Thank you, Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. We have from the applicant team, Gabi Soilev here, as well as Tahir Demircioglu, who is our project architect, and Rebecca Davudian from my office. So what you see before you is a 6967 108th Street rezoning. We seek the Queensborough President's office's approval of this application, which was previously approved in May by Community Board 6. The full board approved this by a vote of 36-4. The next slide is a summary of the project. We are seeking 2 actions. The first, a rezoning of 2 lots along 108th Street from an existing R12A zoning district to an R7D C24 district. This would allow for the development at the site of an 11-story mixed-use residential building, roughly at 55,000 square feet and a 5.6 FAR, and roughly 59 dwelling units. In addition to which the proposed development would include roughly 3,800 square feet of commercial or community facility use, with 51,850 square feet of residential use above. In addition to this, of course, as with all such rezonings, we are requesting a mandatory inclusionary housing text amendment to require affordable housing for roughly 25% of the units here, roughly 15 units. I'm just going to go over some of the strengths of the land use rationale behind this application. Tahir is going to point out some of the architectural aspects, and then the applicant team is happy to answer any questions. So the numbers behind the proposed development, an 11-story building, as we said, roughly 55,000 square feet, with the breakdown of uses as you see before you. A max base height of 85 feet, 8 stories, with a total height of 115 feet, 11 stories. Setbacks, as you see on the screen, as well as as far as the number of units, 59 units with 28 one-bedrooms and 31 two-bedrooms. This is, in actuality, a relatively robust unit mix, providing for more two-bedrooms than one-bedrooms with no studios, and 15 affordable units. Importantly, as was discussed with the community board, because this is an MIH project, the units in the building would reflect, the affordable units would reflect the breakdown of the units generally. So the affordable units here would be 1 and 2 bedroom units and be located throughout the building. The next slide. So we have the zoning map. What is noted from the zoning map? Well, you can see the existing R12A at the site. The site has been zoned R12 or R12A since 1961. And despite that designation, there exist many non-complying buildings along 108th Street on the R12A side of the premises. We note the R71 district to the west of the property, which has produced, as you would imagine, larger, taller buildings ranging from 6 stories to 14 stories in the immediate area of the property. So despite the R12A designation, we do have along 108th Street, as was recognized by Community Board 6, a lot of non-complying buildings, which give a context of a slightly taller building stock. In addition to that, you can see R7 districts, including a C45X or R7X immediately to the southwest. Essentially, the zoning in the area, although it has not been updated for the site in any meaningful way in the last 60 years, would definitely benefit from allowing greater housing options at the site. The next slide is a tax map, which shows the extent of the proposed rezoning. You can see the 2 lots that are included, roughly 20,000 square feet of lot area, the applicant's lot at 10,000 square feet, and an adjacent lot. And the R7D with a commercial overlay would extend over the entire frontage of this block front along 108. The next slide is the area map, which, when reviewed, really gives a great rationale in terms of why this is an appropriate rezoning. The property is roughly 1 block from Queens Boulevard, a major thoroughfare, and extra wide street per zoning. And as you can see, of course, there are 4 subways. There's 4 subway lines located within 3 blocks of the property. So transit options at the site abound, inclusive of bus transit as well. In addition to which, 108th Street, a wide street per zoning here at 80 feet, can handle the additional density. And importantly, when looking at the surrounding context, you can see the immediate buildings in the surrounding area. 2 blocks to the south of us is a 13-story building. To the north of us, 6-story buildings and greater, including a 12-story building. To the southwest of us, a 14-story building. So the context of the area really supports a proposed 11-story building here. It would fit in within the surrounding area. I'm sorry, a 10-story building immediately to the north. The community board recognized this, and although there were options to reduce the height of the building, approved the building at a full 11 stories. The next several slides show pictures of the existing property. We note that the existing property at 10,000 square foot lot has an existing community facility building on it with doctor's offices at less than a 1 FAR. And in addition to the existing building, you can see the building typology in the immediate area reflecting, as we discussed, 6 to 14-story buildings and greater as you go merely 3 blocks from the property. So we would note that, again, the 2-story building at the site, no existing residential density. So we would basically take an underdeveloped site and produce some significant housing. Tahir, if you can please review the architectural aspects, and then we can answer questions.
Hi, everybody. There are 2 things, mainly driving the architectural concept of the building. If you can go to yes, this slide, please. Yeah. The initial one is how we strike a balance between the R71 district with high-rise buildings and a low-lying R12 district, and then the project is trying to strike a balance between these two building groups. You can see on the image on the right side that we place most of the bulk along 108th Street and then create the stepped massing that is coming down to the R12 district where we have generally 2.5 story buildings. So this building, while it's keeping its height along 108th Street in relationship to higher buildings, it comes down to minimize the impact on the low-lying residential district. That basically drove our massing. We further broke down the volume of the building to make it appear even, like fragmented and smaller. That drew our general building shape. Secondly, in terms of, if you can go to the site plan, floor plan, one more. You can see if you can stay on the section, that would be great. You can see our stepping down idea on the section right here, that mainly the building bulk is on 108th Street and in the east-west section, and then the building is stepping down towards the R12 district. Next, please. This image shows again the same concept in a larger urban context, showing that the building is very well in line with what's happening on 108th Street, and then it's also extreme proximity to the high-rise buildings on Queens Boulevard. Next, please. One more. So this is our ground floor plan. We wanted to create a building that is also in line with its neighborhood. So on the ground floor, we wanted to pull the building back and then created planting areas and create buffer zones between the residential one or two family housing towards east. So this kind of reflects that, and it's not. We don't want to use every inch of the site, so it generates real buffer zones between the neighbors. And in terms of regular floor plate, which you see on the plan to the right, it has a central core, and then all the dwelling units are configured around this core. But one of the main things here is as you can see, there's a notch on the right side of the building that takes daylight into the elevator and the public corridor. So it will be a really nice living environment for the residential tenants, that they will have always daylight in the corridor, which also helps into or locks into our sustainable strategies. Go next, please. These are the typical floor plans. As we go up, the building is peeling back from the eastern side and then putting most of the bulk along 108th Street. Next, please. And then at the top, it gets really, really small with this stepping effect. Next, please. In terms of the second leg was the materiality, and we wanted to create a traditional building, more traditional. It's a modern building, but with traditional touches. The material here, a brick or a terracotta, is well in line with what's happening in this neighborhood, and it's been well received so far. With the window sizes and volumes, we all took our clues from what's in this neighborhood, and then we believe this will be a good fit in that sense. If you go to the next, this is a view looking further south, that showing the building in relation with higher rise buildings along the Queens Boulevard. That's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thanks, Tahir. So just to conclude, when looking at sites that are underdeveloped with no potential for residential displacement, which are proximate to mass transit on wide streets, and within the context of a surrounding area, offer buildings that are within that context. Really, the site is exemplary in terms of a potential rezoning. has been noted so in prior conversations and communications from the Department of City Planning. And so we're excited to potentially move forward on this project. And with that, the entire applicant team is happy to answer questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I see the community board approved the application, but community board 6 had some conditions. Can you speak to the conditions that were stated by the board, please?
Sure, happy to do that. So the community board enumerated 6 conditions, 5 of which are operative conditions. The 6th one was that they wanted to note that their vote did not intend to change the zoning of the R1 district to the east of 108th Street. The remaining 5 conditions, I think to a large extent, we've either attempted or are trying to attempt to comply with those. They requested changes to the facade, particularly to use brick and stone in terms of materiality. Tahir has adjusted the renderings of the building, and we're happy to try and comply to produce a building that's more contextual in terms of that materiality. They asked for a focus for commercial use, such as a grocery store, cafe, medical office. That would be a benefit to the community. We're happy to do that as well. The applicants here live in the immediate area, with one of the applicant team residing on the subject block. So we do want to see productive uses at the site and are happy to comply with that request. They've also requested a loading zone in front of the building. That is a request to be made of Department of Transportation. And we're happy to facilitate that, although we can't ensure that. We're happy to be a partner in requesting that. The remaining conditions were with regards to a setback from the building to the north. It's a little bit of a tighter fit than we're able to commit to. We do have a 10,000 square foot lot, and with setbacks. So I think we've tried to be sensitive in terms of that massing, but it's something that, Tahir is looking at. We can't commit to that, but we do understand the comment. In addition to that, they wanted an increase in the number of affordable units. They wanted an increase to 30%. I think that that's going to be, frankly, challenging for a site of this nature. We're only looking at roughly 59 units total at the site, of which 15 would be affordable. I know that option 1 would provide that 10% of the building would be affordable at 40% AMI. So we are, we're trying to comply with to the greatest extent possible. I just don't know, as far as the numbers are concerned, whether we can do anything above that. So that's how we would address those conditions.
Thank you. We have heard from some concerns from adjacent tenants that will be affected by construction. Can you walk me through your plan to attenuate the noise, debris, and other issues that may have come up?
Sure. I just start by saying that our immediately adjacent neighbor to the north has attended the land use committee hearings and was in favor of this project. So we do have some really nice adjacent support. In addition to typical controls that we put on construction in terms of construction schedule and staging of the construction. Tahir, can you just speak for a minute about the site? Because I think you mentioned that we're going to be able to keep disruption to a minimum, given that we'd be able to stage most of the activity on the site itself.
Currently, we are not proposing anything towards the back of the building, so there's no parking here. Not a big commercial, so there's like a big staging area towards the back, which will be nicely screened off from the street and also from the neighbors for the overall staging. There will be like a minimal construction activity, obviously limited to with the general construction activities, but we'll try to minimize it by including within our envelope.
Okay. And outside of, excuse me, outside of what is legally mandated, can you highlight sustainable designs or infrastructure associated with the proposed development, please?
Tahir, if you could address that, that'd be great.
Like one of the major things is that we want to minimize the lighting electrical use. So this building is fully electrified, and also with the daylights in the corridors, it will minimize the electrical and emissions that are coming out of this building. They will be limited. Second of all, because we're not using the full footprint, there's a lot of areas around this building for greenery and open areas, which also help a lot with the storm water management. So the impact to the city's infrastructure will be limited in that sense. We will of course use the latest bird-friendly glazing on this project as well to increase our energy efficiency. In a nutshell, that these will be the beyond what's called mandated issues.
Right. Thank you very much. We do have some, excuse me. Pardon. We do have some speakers present, and I believe we may have a couple online as well to speak. I'm going to start with the first speaker will be Leah Piscane. Please come to the microphone. Yes. Oh, gosh.
Testing. Don't have to. Am I okay? Am I okay? Am I close enough? We object to the proposed building at 6967 108th Street with its attendant rezoning as inappropriate and setting a precedent that would damage the character, infrastructure capacity, and livability of the area for decades to come. A new construction 11-story building would be of excessive scale and inconsistent with the character of the surroundings. 70th Avenue is a block of single-family homes, and the adjacent pre-war red brick buildings are 6 stories. 108th Street is among the neighborhood's most congested transport corridors. Buses are already overcrowded and unreliable, parking nearly impossible, access to local streets compromised. The proposal would exacerbate current problems with water and drainage infrastructure, impede local ambulance services, and overburden our one emergency room. It would increase traffic despite the developer's contention. It would further burden electrical infrastructure and sanitation services. Nearly every public school in Forest Hills is over capacity. The building would be jarringly out of place in scale and aesthetic character on 108th Street. A building of that height would undermine privacy as well as access to sunlight for surrounding pedestrians and residents, not to mention the years of construction disruption. Commercial establishments on the ground floor would be totally superfluous in view of the abundant nearby retail and discordant with the street's residential character. The powerful precedent that an 11-story tan, brick, and glass building on that corner would set cannot be overestimated. If approved, any future high-density construction on 108th Street would have a glide path to approval without regard to size or aesthetic consistency as developers become emboldened. We acknowledge the need to increase housing inventory in New York. Toward that end, several high-rise buildings have already been built in Forest Hills in the recent past. I've counted 697 affordable units, and that's just what I found as a layperson. Higher density buildings are a far more efficient tool for creating affordable units, and there are myriad other locations, especially on Queens Boulevard, for building high-rises without disrupting this residential area. Adding hundreds of additional residents to 108th Street would be irresponsible, especially in view of the smattering of affordable units gleaned. We respectfully request that the borough president reject the rezoning, consider a lower scale alternative, engage in genuine community discourse, and protect Forest Hills' character and livability for future generations. Please accept this petition begun by Crystal Chan, a Forest Hills resident, with its nearly 500 signatures, as just a partial indication of the many constituents who feel as we do that the impact of multiple high-density developments will produce harmful long-term community outcomes. Wow, I had one word over.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Jason Steinberg. Please introduce yourself and begin.
I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right thing. Let me go.
My name is Jason Steinberg. I've been a resident of Forest Hills for nearly 30 years. I raised my 2 children here. I care deeply about this community, and I am here today to respectfully urge you to reject the proposed rezoning at 6967 108th Street. Like many of my neighbors, I am not opposed to development. I understand New York City's need for housing, including affordable housing. But development must be responsible, thoughtful, and compatible with the communities in which it's proposed. This project is not. The proposed rezoning would allow an 11-story building where a single-family home with a small medical office currently stands. It's dramatically out of scale with the surrounding neighborhood and would place additional strain on the area, already dealing with traffic congestion, parking shortages, overcrowded schools, and an overburdened infrastructure. Equally concerning is the cumulative impact of multiple projects being proposed along 108th Street. Residents are not being asked to absorb one construction project. They are being asked to absorb the possibility of several large developments within a few blocks of one another. If these rezonings continue to be approved, the neighborhood could face years of overlapping construction, bringing noise, dust, construction traffic, parking disruptions, and safety concerns that will affect residents every day. I would like to address one of the reasons cited in the support of this project. During the Community Board 6 review, some members pointed to the possibility of a ground floor retail, such as a supermarket or a cafe, as a benefit to the community. But Forest Hills is not lacking supermarkets, cafes, restaurants, or neighborhood services. Restaurants already have access to these amenities within a short distance of the site. The question is not whether another cafe or store can be built. The question is whether we want 108th Street to continue as a residential corridor or gradually become another commercial strip. Many residents have made it clear that they value the residential character of this area and want it preserved. My greatest concern, however, is the precedent this approval would set. Every rezoning approval becomes a reference point for future applications. We are already seeing multiple rezoning proposals along 108th Street. Developers watch these decisions closely and use them to justify the next project or the one after that. This application should not be viewed in isolation. It is part of a larger pattern that is gradually reshaping the neighborhood despite concerns repeatedly expressed by residents. We can support affordable housing while also demanding responsible planning. Those goals are not mutually exclusive. I respectfully ask that you stand with residents of Forest Hills and reject this rezoning application. Doing so will send a clear message that growth must be balanced, responsible, and responsive to the communities it affects. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Our next speaker is Sharon Suggs.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? To Borough President Donovan Richards, my name is Sharon Suggs, and I've been a resident and co-op owner in Forest Hills for more than 30 years. I'm here today to respectfully oppose the proposed rezoning and overdevelopment at 67-69 108th Street. I urge you, Borough President Richards, to protect our neighborhood and vote against the construction of a new 11-story residential building with proposed ground commercial space at this location and with no planned parking for the residents of the building. This project would be built on a quiet residential 108th Street that is already experiencing increasing pressure from the development. Adding another large building on 108 will contribute to greater traffic congestion, increased demand on aging infrastructure and drainage systems, and additional vehicular activity in an area that was not destined to accommodate this level of density. Our neighborhood is increasingly becoming a victim of overdevelopment and overpopulation. Residents chose this community because of its six-story residential character, family-friendly atmosphere, and peaceful surroundings. This proposal threatens to alter that character permanently. If this rezoning is approved, it could set a precedent that encourages developers to target other properties throughout Forest Hills, replacing homes and smaller scale buildings with larger developments that overwhelm the existing landscape and infrastructure. Forest Hills is a unique and beautiful community, and we must preserve the qualities that have made it such a desirable place to live for generations. For this reason, I respectfully ask that this proposal be rejected. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. For the record, I'd like to confirm if there are any additional online virtual testimonies. Solar, is there anyone else?
No, it appears everyone else is for the Sapphire Street item.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said it appears everyone else is for the Sapphire Street item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. But in light of that, I'd like to close this item, and we can move on to the next item. Vanessa, please call the calendar.
Calendar items number 3 and 4 are related. ULURP number 250392 ZMQ and ULURP number N250330 ZRQ. The applicant is 135 Sapphire LLC, affected Community Board 10. The presenter may begin.
Thank you. Good morning again. Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant, Sam Zirk. I'm joined by Amanda Iannotti of my office. With us as well are, if you'll allow me to just look at my list, Danielle Drake from our engineer from H2M. We've got Dan Russo, our project architect, as well as Christina Zapansky from GZA, our environmental consultant. So you can see the 13527 Sapphire Street rezoning presentation in front of you. Next slide. What would we be seeking here? We would seek two actions. The first would be a rezoning of roughly 12 lots from an existing R4 district to an R6A zoning district. This would allow the construction of a new 6-story plus cellar residential building with a total of roughly 186,000 square feet, or FAR 3.4, and roughly 268 dwelling units. And again, as with all such rezonings, there would be a text amendment to allow for MIH over the project area, and this would allow for 67 affordable units currently depicted as option 1. I'll do a brief summary of the land use rationale behind the proposed rezoning and text amendment. Dan Russo, our project architect, can discuss architectural issues, and then the entire applicant team is happy to answer any questions. The numbers behind the proposed development are on the next slide. As discussed, this would be a 6-story plus cellar building with roughly 186,000 square feet of floor area, a base height of 5 stories, and with a additional setback at the 6th story. The total height would be 65 feet. There would be roughly 118 parking spaces, vehicular parking spaces, 268 units at the breakdown as is presented, with roughly 25% of those affordable at option 1. The next slide demonstrates the zoning map, which we'll look at now, and then we'll look at the area map in a minute. But to take a look at the zoning map here, you can see, to begin with, immediately adjacent to the site to the north, the 7808 Linden Boulevard rezoning, rezone the area along Linden Boulevard to R7D C24, and adjacent to the parcel, rezoned R6A district. So the proposed rezoning here would continue that rezoning south to 149th Avenue. So this really makes sense in terms of continuing the existing context. In addition to this, to the west of the site in 2017, the Linden Boulevard rezoning which was a Brooklyn rezoning, rezoned the area along Linden Boulevard to R8A with R7A and R6A in the mid-block. So again, these land use patterns and the proposed zoning districts reflect prior actions, including ones which have been effectuated within the last 4 months and which found approval through the Euler process. Next slide is a tax map, which demonstrates the entirety of the project area as well as the rezoning area, coterminous, with the exception of a small portion of a lot located within the bed of a map street. And so you can see the rezoning district boundary, which again would carry the R6A further south through the block. The next slide is the area map, which demonstrates several things. First, 79th Street itself, a wide street at 80 feet wide and able to handle the additional density as well as transportation. We can see that the site sits within 150 feet or so of Linden Boulevard. So this is a wide street, Linden Boulevard, and major thoroughfare in the area, which also allows for transportation options. There's also local retail abounding along Linden Boulevard. Basically, the area is well suited for the proposed rezoning, which was demonstrated by the overwhelmingly almost unanimous vote of Queens Community Board 10. The next several slides show photos of the site and the surrounding area. The site is a depressed area. There's been little in terms of meaningful development on the site. You can see the underdeveloped lots that are included as part of the site. We really would have an opportunity here to do something which would be productive and allow for the utilization of a site for housing and affordability, which has remained unusable for years. With that, Amanda, if you want to forward to the plans and materials, Dan can walk us through the architectural materials, and then we're happy to answer questions.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for your time today. Hi, Amanda. Could you flip to the next slide, please? So we're seeing the project. We see Linden up to the right on the right-hand side of the sheet. We've got 149th Avenue on our lower left, and then the property is bordered by Sapphire Street on the far left and 79th Street on the right. We are proposing a building that would encompass basically be a U-shaped building with the opening of the U facing Linden to the north. We are roughly 268 units in total, 67 of them affordable, with, as what Richard just said, 118 spaces of parking in the cellar level for a total proposed zoning floor area of just over 186,000 square feet and a total building height of roughly 6 stories. Next slide, please. Here we are, we're seeing Linden on the left, 149th, 79th, and Sapphire. And we've got the Linden Diner on the left of the blue right now. Next slide, please. The cellar level is within a floodplain, within a flooding zone. So to that end, we are proposing mostly storage and parking uses. We have the parking entrance coming via a driveway that occurs on the north side of the site. That's the left side of the screen right now. We would have a double lane bidirectional drive aisle there. So we would be able to have traffic coming in from 79th and from Sapphire and egressing to both 79th and Sapphire. In a future configuration, when the DOT does have plans to adjust the grade in this entire area in order to address flooding concerns, our bidirectional drive aisle with access to both streets is what actually would allow us to have DOT do the work without actually impacting our tenants whatsoever. As even if we lose one leg of the driveway, we don't lose both ends of the driveway as they perform their work, and residents would still be able to park and access it even if they lost one of those outlets. Next slide, please. Here you see the building. This is the first floor, which is obviously elevated. Our entrance is off of 79th Street. We've elected to push the building back at grade to allow for a landscaping buffer around the entire perimeter. This decongests the sidewalk and just creates a nicer perimeter around the building for residents of the entire neighborhood at large. It also gives us some pervious landscaping, which will allow for flooding to be better mitigated in that situation. Please note mechanical space spaces have been lifted outside of the floodplain and to the ground floor. And what you're seeing in the center there in that crosshatch is an outside recreation space terrace that occurs inside of the courtyard of the building, accessible to all residents of the building above that lower level parking garage. Next slide, please. The upper floor just follows in. The building would cover over the driveways. We're still in a relative U configuration across the entirety. You can see our primary core still located obviously along 79th Street over there. Next slide, please. And then finally, at the sixth floor, the building does set back to provide a wraparound terrace for the units at the upper floor and really create what feels from a streetscape condition to be a lower height building, which we'll be able to see shortly with the renderings. Next slide, please. Here we are as a building section. You can see the driveway on the left. This is our proposed grade elevation changes should DOT elevate the grades to what we're identifying as quote unquote future grade. You can see that along 79th, we're elevating by about 1.4 inches. But it's much more meaningful along Sapphire, which you can see on the right, which is being elevated by nearly 10 feet. Again, we are designed in such a way to be able to accommodate and absorb this type of a change with minimal work required by the DOT or by the owner in the future. Here's our massing with a setback. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I think these pictures tell the story a little bit better. The Linden Diner is being replaced with that red and black development that you see to the right of our building, which is right in the center. That is the white and wood and tan building that you're seeing in the center. Next slide, please. This is our main entrance over here. We're at 149th and 79th. So here you can see our corner, and you can see how when we set the building back, we provide quite a bit of landscaping and create a really nice streetscape condition. Next slide, please. And here you're seeing our parking garage entrance. That driveway occurs through that garage door. The reason we have that blank wall right above it is the grade may be changed on this street, which is Sapphire Street, by 10 feet. So that garage door would have to be lifted by approximately 10 feet in the future. Again, we've already accommodated for that. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Joe. So just to wrap up, and thank you, Dan. We have a site here which is extremely challenging in terms of both the site conditions as well as the history of the site. An opportunity here to, and this is through consultation with numerous city agencies, to allow for thoughtful development at the site. We think that this design really recognizes the qualities of the site and also reflects our conversations with Community Ward 10, which again voted almost unanimously to approve this. So with that, the applicant team is happy to answer questions.
Thank you. With regards to the land use committee's conditions, what was the discussion like?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things to note. The first is that they did not have a quorum at the land use committee, so they did not have an official vote. They were largely pleased with the site design. The conversation at the full board reflected that members of the land use committee, through an informal poll, approved the project. There was discussion around the number of parking spaces. It was generally found that the number of spaces that are offered were sufficient. Just a little bit of a further discussion with regards to drainage issues around the site. And I think that they were satisfied primarily through the discussions by Danielle and Dan that we were addressing potential future conditions, both in terms of regrading of the site as well as potential drainage issues. So there was a largely positive conversation. And I think that was reflected in the full board's vote.
Can you speak to some of the negative comments given at the Community Board 10 public hearing?
Yeah, I actually would probably have Danielle speak to that because some of this was really around issues involving DEP and site conditions and drainage around the site. Danielle, do you want to address that?
Sure. So I think some of the people were sort of questioning the timeline on this and how it relates to the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan. And our answer was really that the site does allow for, DOT to raise the streets, which is part of the Jewel Streets plan. We've had many discussions with DEP regarding the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan and how it fits into the development of this site and how it affects this site. So we've been in contact with them throughout, even back to 2019, I think, when we first came to them with an original plan for this site. So they really wanted to see how this fit in the timeline as well. And my understanding and our understanding after talking with DEP is that the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan is, a long-term plan. It's going to take many years to implement all the different aspects. There's many different layers to the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan, but our site, the bottom line is that it does not preclude any of the development that they're planning for in that Jewel Streets neighborhood plan.
Right. Thank you. And of course, outside of, outside of the legally mandated, can you highlight sustainable designs and infrastructure associated with the proposed development?
Sure. So the proposed development will comply with the New York State Stretch Code, which is what we call the New York City Energy Code. We have everything from hot water recapture, where used hot water from showers will be recirculated through a heat exchanger to capture that heat and reuse it to heat fresh and new water. We will have a green roof component across the entire project and perhaps even a PV component on that project, the project as well. We'll be a 100% electric building. And obviously meet the strict energy code requirements for in terms of insulation. We'll tend to be more insulated than the average building in the rest of the country, which will allow us to downsize our mechanical system and thus heating and cooling requirements. Furthermore, in the terms of water and dealing with water in this neighborhood, as it is a prevalent issue in the area, our cellar level is actually a gabion wall construction. This actually comes from highway design. Essentially, it's a bunch of stones that are actually wrapped inside of a steel cage. It can be quite beautiful. The stones can change, but what this does is it creates a completely permeable layer. In the case of flooding, we intend to not fight the flood, but rather work with it. So again, that's why that lowest level and that parking level is really kept open and devoid of any mechanical uses or anything like that, as we will allow the water to permeate through the building and thus actually not fight any kind of flooding that would occur on the area. We'll wet flood proof as opposed to dry flood proof, and we'll raise all of our habitable uses above and outside of that. It also creates for a beautiful streetscape condition when matched with the landscaping. We felt it would be a really nice addition to the neighborhood in that end.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to any public speakers. Sola, can you call the calendar on those?
The first speaker will be Meredith McNair. Please unmute.
Hello. I'm not seeing how to turn my camera on, but I will begin. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the chance to testify today. My name is
Please try to
Meredith.
turn your camera on, and it should be at the bottom of your screen.
I'm so sorry. Oh, here. Thank you. There we go. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the chance to testify today. I am Meredith McNair, and I'm a community planner at Cypress Hills LDC and also a member of the Justice for the Jewel Streets Coalition. I've been working alongside Jewel Streets residents for the past 5 years to advocate for essential infrastructure in this long neglected neighborhood. And after years of our hard work, door knocking, organizing community meetings, and planning and workshops with HPD, the city finally released the Jewel Streets Neighborhood Plan last October. The plan will bring sewers, green infrastructure, safer streets, and affordable housing to the area, as well as new zoning. And right now, the city's engineers are still finalizing the details of the sewer installation plan, which involves raising streets to varying degrees and a complex drainage system flowing into Jamaica Bay. At this time, because the plans are still in development, it's really impossible to anticipate the exact configuration for each block and how that will affect drainage patterns. Therefore, I believe it's premature to approve specific development plans at this site. The lot is situated at one of the lowest points of the neighborhood, which has seen chronic flooding for years due to its low elevation and also Spring Creek running underground beneath it. Any development at this site should be closely tailored to the finalized infrastructure plans, and that can't happen until they're actually released. Also, the developer claims the project will align with the neighborhood plan. However, the zoning in the plan calls for R5 on the western half of this site and R6D on the eastern half. So the proposal does conflict with the plan in that sense. This zoning was carefully thought out to limit density on the most flood-prone section of the block while maintaining sufficient development capacity for new housing. I ask that the borough president vote no on the application at this time and that the developer wait for the approval of the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan, which is on track to be approved next year. To be clear, I don't really oppose development at this site, just this particular proposal I think should be tailored to the neighborhood plan and should be delayed until the plan is actually approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Sola, can you please call the next?
The next speaker will be Deborah Ack. Please unmute.
Good morning. Can you hear me? I too do not see where to turn my camera on.
It should be at the bottom
Uh-huh.
of your view screen.
Join as a panel.
Yeah, Deborah. So if you accept that, you'll rejoin as a panelist and be able to turn your camera on.
And audio.
There you go.
Oh, there I go. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to submit oral testimony. I'm Deborah Ack. I am a member of the Jewel Streets, Justice for the Jewel Streets Coalition. As my partner Meredith just previously stated, I have been working with the residents and homeowners of the Jewel Streets for the past 5 years. This neighborhood has been neglected for 50 years when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to sewer and rainwater drainage. I too, like Meredith stated, am not opposed of this development. It's just the timing of this development. It's called the Sapphire Street. Sapphire Street sits in the lowest area of the flood zone in the Jewel Streets. The reason that this land has not been developed on is due to the fact that it's not connected to a sewer system. The property owners previously wanted to develop but could not get permits because there was no connection to a sewer system. They had to build and implement their own sewer system, which was overly costly. I'm asking that the borough president put this development on hold so that it does connect with our Jewel Streets neighborhood planning project. We've been working with these homeowners for the past 5 years. And as I said, this area has been neglected. They plan to raise the Sapphire Street 10 feet. 10 feet would bury their garage, not understanding why they would want to put a garage and an entrance on Sapphire Street, and then later on down the line, when the streets are raised, we'll have to close that entrance because it'll be under the streets ground level. My thing is that we are in need of housing. The area is already zoned for new development once the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan is implemented, which would, to me, would make sense to put it on hold, raising the street 10 feet so that they can put in a sewer system and a rainwater drainage system in that area would make sense, but it probably would conflict with the development of this project. So I'm asking that this project be put on hold and that they come together so that it conforms with the Jewel Streets neighborhood planning. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you, Deborah. Sola, is there the next speaker, please?
There are no, oh, well, next speaker would be Betty Bratton.
Hello, hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Betty, we can hear you. Hi.
Good morning. My name is Betty Brayton. I'm the chairperson of Community Board 10 Queens. I am speaking regarding these two related items on today's agenda. Community Board 10 conducted its public hearing regarding them on June the 4th, 2026. These two items relate to proposed development at 135-27 Sapphire Street in the Lindenwood section adjacent of Howard Beach, where Community Board 10 recently approved a development to the property just to the north of this. As has been stated, this is a difficult property to develop. However, given its proximity to our coastal flood zone and to the area that's being considered in the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan, which has not been approved by Community Board 10, as it hasn't moved to the point where we have sufficient information regarding it. The speaker at the public hearing that we held, there was one speaker. I apologize for my phone button. There was one speaker at the public hearing who offered comment. It was not comment that was in opposition. It was not comment that was in favor. It was, and from today's proceedings, I could see that it was Ms. McNair who made the comment, and the comment consisted of, I believe, two questions related to the Jewel Streets area in total plan. This is a specific property that is located within the neighborhood south of Linden Boulevard. It is a project that makes sense for our community and the many existing issues that are involved in developing in that region. I'm veering off my prepared comments, but Community Board 10 meeting was held on the same evening, June the 4th. We were one short of a quorum at our land use committee, which was to evaluate and make a recommendation on this project. We entertained as a result. After the public hearing closed, and there was just the one speaker in the public hearing from the public, board members did answer questions, and most of those questions involved around the development issues in general in that area. We support this project because it makes sense for the community in which it is located. We are attaching, and we will be sending before the close of business today, the information that will be in our submission to the city planning in regard to this matter. We considered the matters that were brought up at our last land use committee. We considered the matters that were brought up at the board meeting. Our board supports this. The vote was 29-1, 29 in favor, 1 in opposition. There was one member who appropriately disclosed a potential conflict of interest, and she did not vote. So the vote was 21-9 to 1 to 1. It was definitely a difficult project. Anything developing in that area on what is vacant land is problematic. But this project makes sense. The design that Mr. Lobel's group has worked with us on makes sense for that area. We would urge that the borough president and the Borough of Queens support the considerations and modifications that were part of our vote. The vote was with modifications, considerations, and recommendations.
Thank you for your testimony, Betty.
Out of time, you will have them by the end of the day today in writing. So that's the position of Board 10. I'm sorry that I had to veer off my prepared remarks because I would have gone on into some of those conditions. But Community Board 10 does support this project. It makes sense for our community, and we understand that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your purview. Are there any other speakers, please?
Yeah, no more speakers.
No more speakers? In that
No
case,
more speakers.
this item is closed, and I will close this hearing. The next scheduled land use public hearing is July 2nd. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.